It's me again. Are you worrying about how to vote in May's county council elections, or even a general election if we get one earlier than 2029? I wasn't going to do this video yet, but I've seen so many comments and worries about splitting the vote and who's best to vote for that I felt it would be a good idea to discuss this now. Hopefully, it's a plan to vote Labour out, and if you don't want Labour out, you're watching the wrong channel. Unfortunately, we can't vote them out of government until a general election is called. But I'm hopeful that the Great British National Strike taking place in February may force a general election, and if it does, I'll immediately do another video about how we can vote in a general election and what tactics we can use to get the result that our country so desperately needs. In the meantime, let's discuss the upcoming county council elections taking place in May. What I'd like to see is as many Labour councils voted out as possible, and I think you probably want that too. The more councils that Labour lose control of, the weaker they will become. So, how do we do that, and who do we vote for? You don't need me to tell you that these are desperate times, and desperate times need desperate measures. Getting Labour out must be our priority. When I was a naive 18-year-old many years ago, I didn't really understand tactical voting. I couldn't see the point. I mean, why not just vote for the party you want? But now I realise that because of our antiquated first-past-the-post system, tactical voting is sometimes necessary if you want your vote to count. First of all, let me allay any fears you may have about splitting the vote between Reform and Advance UK. This is not going to happen in the local elections. Advance UK will not be able to field enough, if any, candidates because the party is too new, and since you won't be able to vote for Advance in the local elections, they can't split the vote. This may well change in any general election taking place in the future, but I'll cover that in a later video. I've done some research into tactical voting to keep Labour out, and as far as I can see, it boils down to voting for the party most likely to win against Labour in your area, as long as it's not the Greens, of course, who are nearly as bad as Labour. Tactical voting has the most impact in marginal seats where there are two or more parties in the running, but it can still be useful in other situations. We have to be a bit savvy and look at the usual voting in our own area, but also take into account Reform's likely impact. Artificial intelligence such as ChatGPT, Copilot or Grok can be useful in finding facts and figures and advising on demographics and the likely impact of Reform in your particular area. Let's have a look at some hypothetical examples. A council area normally has Conservatives, say, on 55% of the vote, Lib Dems 35% and Labour 7%. So in this case, there are no worries that Labour are going to get in. Let's say the area is deemed by Grok to be middle class and rural, and Grok says Reform are unlikely to win in this type of area, but they may split the Conservative vote. If Reform split the vote enough, for example by taking half of the Conservative votes, it's feasible that the Lib Dems could then win. If your first choice is Reform and your last choice the Lib Dems, you might choose to vote for the Conservatives in order to stop the Lib Dems getting in. In this scenario, you know Labour aren't going to get in, you think Reform are unlikely to, so you choose to vote Conservative to stop the Lib Dems, as much as that might stick in your throat. This is tactical voting. Let's imagine a different scenario of an area that is usually a close two-party race between Labour and the Lib Dems. Let's also say that Reform now appears strong in this area, and Grok says the demographic is a working class ex-industrial area and that Reform performs well in this type of demographic. Although Reform mainly take votes from ex-Conservatives, they can also gain votes from ex-Labour supporters in this type of area. If you want to keep Labour out, your choice is obviously between the Lib Dems and Reform. If Reform is your first choice, you may worry about letting Labour in and splitting the Lib Dem vote. In this scenario, I can only suggest you do as much research as possible. For example, finding out what share of the vote Reform got locally in the last general election. And if you're still unsure, but think Reform have a chance, then vote for them. If it seems Reform don't have much of a chance, you might decide to tactically vote for the Lib Dems to keep Labour out, as much as that might stick in your throat. But let's be savvy. Let's get Labour out, do or die. In most cases, your choice will be a no-brainer. If it's anyone's race, then vote for your first choice. If there's any possibility that Labour or the Greens will get in, do your research, talk with others and vote tactically. And if your area is a close run fight between Labour and the Greens, you might even want to consider moving. I think I would. Anyway, fingers crossed, most voters will vote to ensure many Labour councillors will be looking for new jobs come June. And in Starmer's Britain, they might even have to get themselves some digital ID to find another one. So I've given you my idea on a voting game plan for the council elections. You may well have already decided who you're voting for and you don't need it. That's fine. But if you're voting for Labour or the Greens, I'll say again, get off my channel. I'm supplying a plan to people who want Labour out. Is it as good as one of Blackadder's cunning plans? I doubt it, but you can let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe, folks. My next video will talk about some great action already being taken by others and also action that we can take ourselves now. Not only will doing something make you feel better, it will send a message to the money-grabbing, morally bereft, communist dictatorship called Labour and their power-crazed globalist comrades. I don't want to live in George Orwell's 1984. We can't stand aside, we can't let them continue to ruin our country. We are many. Let's stick together. You're not alone. Bye for now.